Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to the shed. How are you doing today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I'm good. Today was back to work day, Monday of course, and I had a good day at work. Got some good code written, got some more testing done on new servers and all that sort of stuff. But more importantly, I got quite a bit of more work done on this book idea. And I tell you what I've learned. First of all, I am super lucky to have a really awesome mentor. Scott King is an author. I guess he's a professional author at this point. He doesn't. That's his. He has. That's his business, and he's good at it. And he was a teacher before, so he's really good at teaching writing. And he's really been helping me. And by helping me, I mean telling me that my idea is garbage. And every step of the way, he stepped in and said, nope, this is not good enough. Start over. And if it was up to me, my stubbornness would have already just said, screw you, I'm going to do it my way. And I would have written a book that is perfectly fine, just not very good. And I think the reason is this book that I want to write is, it's really just an excuse to tell a plot, right? Like I have a plot that I want to lay out. Essentially, this book came about as pre-planning for a different book. And I thought, oh, well, this is a fun story. I'd like to tell this story. Because I had already written this pages and pages and pages of journaling, world building, that sort of stuff. So I had already written the plot for the climax of this book already existed. So I thought, I want to tell the story, but I've got to figure out a way to tell the story that's interesting. So there has to be a character involved. And so I came up with this character. And this character was going to go on this pretty tropey adventure of trying to figure out what's happening and then stopping it. The problem is, in my version of the book, this character was just this very flat, doesn't really have a character arc, doesn't have a flaw, doesn't have any major conflict other than solving the mystery. And that was his complete drive, complete motivation. And that character, that story, that, step by step figuring out what's next and solving the problem, is like the formula for all the stuff I loved reading, or not all the stuff, but it's very familiar to me. It's the Indiana Jones character, the character that doesn't really have any progression in a movie or in a book. I've read a lot of Indiana Jones books, and they're very good, but they're also like, Indiana does not start as something and end as anything different. It's just a character that goes through the motions to solve a problem. Or it's, episodic TV where characters are just these people that don't really have a story, just walking through the motions to tell you the plot, where the plot takes the focus of the story. And I've read, and also growing up, and even now, I guess I haven't done it, not in a while, but I used to read a lot of dime novels, like 1800s, 1900s crime story dime novel, like early 20th century crime stories. Read a lot of that stuff, and in all of those, the character is just a vehicle for telling the murder mystery or whatever. Mysteries books, a lot of those times, characters are just these really basic people who have no real drive or motivation to do what they're doing. They just do it because that's the motivation. Like, they enjoy solving the puzzle. So I was hoping to write a book like that. And in talking to Scott, he has basically told me, no, don't do that. That's dumb. You won't appreciate it, and it will just get lost in the chafe. And he's right. I know he's right. Positive he's right. Like every moment I mention something to him and he tells me no, not good enough, I know he's absolutely right. But it's very difficult because, I'm telling a story that I'm familiar with. Like I've read hundreds of mystery novels. I've read hundreds of just bland, like I recently reviewed The Da Vinci Code. The main character in that story he's a nobody. Like, he doesn't have a reason to go on this adventure. He just does it out of curiosity. Curiosity is the only reason that drives him forward. It's the only thing. He has no arc. He doesn't start off as one thing and end as something else. He's just a vehicle for telling you this complex plot. And the plot is the story. And that was what I was starting off with. And I believe that Scott is completely right in telling me that that's not a good first novel to start with. If I can't nail character and story arcs in my first book, it's never going to happen for me. And I need to at least try to have some sort of character development happen. And the funny thing is, like, I love character development. I love character-rich stories where characters become something better than what they were, or they become something worse than what they were, or they become broken or whatever. I really love that type of storytelling. So I sent Scott my kind of synopsis. He calls it a beat sheet that goes through the beats of the book, and where, this is the catalyst that kicks off the book. This is, the current situation. This is the first attempt at trying to solve this problem, and what happens if he succeeds or fails. And you go through these steps. And I turned it in, and he was just like, no, this is a huge failure. And I was like, okay. And it's kind of disheartening. But I think the problem is, I'm trying to tell a plot. I'm not trying to tell a story. And those are two completely separate things. So I have to find the story. I have to find the main character's story in this plot and figure out a way to tell both stories, or else there's no reason for the reader to read the book. The only other way I could write this book is sort of like a history book, and a history of a world that nobody knows anything about because they haven't read any of the other books. So maybe I could get away with a plot-focusing book if there's already other things that depend on the reader, or would be highlighted if the reader were to go back and read the initial setup. So if I had already written other things and this book was like a prequel, maybe it could be just a plot, and the plot would stand on its own. But as it is, the plot, it's not interesting enough to stand on its own. It needs a good character story to drive it, and I'm trying to find that. I'm struggling with it really bad, which is really interesting because I study character a lot in a lot of the things that I watch. When characters are just kind of boring, I notice, and it bothers me. So I have to figure out a way to make my main character way less boring, make the story way less boring, and try again. And I'm confident I can do it. Just, man, writing a book is a lot of work when you're, I guess, stepping out of my element to tell this character story instead of telling this plot story. I don't know. Don't know what any of that means. But I thank you for listening. I thank you for being here. It's just what's going on in my world right now. It's kind of late. I had both girls here tonight. We played Bob Ross' game, which was really fun. And my oldest just left. And so I'm just going to hang out for the rest of the night. So thank you for being here, as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being my bestest friends on the internet. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, Doc, wait! I want to ask you something.
Today's Random Fact comes from NPS.gov. When did we get electricity? In 1882, Edison helped form the Edison Electric Illuminating Company of New York, which brought electric lights to parts of Manhattan. Progress was slow. Most Americans still lit their homes with gaslight and candles for another 50 years. Only in 1925 did half of all homes in the U.S. have electric power.